Clarity is a tremendous gift. There's so much noise. It's hard for us to actually just simply see what's going on. And some people are very gifted in having the clarity. Douglas Murray is very gifted at seeing what's going on. There are 4 points he makes in this clip, which we'll watch together, which is critical for every single one of us to know. Let's watch this.
And there is no law of war that says you're allowed to start a war and then complain when you lose it. And if Medhi cares about the Palestinian casualties, as I'm sure he does, then tell your bosses in Qatar to tell their friends in Gaza to stop the war and give back the hostages. Gideon says Israel needs nothing more than criticism. Israel doesn't get criticism. Wow, he doesn't even read his own country's press. By the way, you said the other day in an interview, Gideon, I couldn't care less about the Jewish state. So we know very well where you're coming from. Let me just say a couple of things about that I didn't get to in my opening remarks, but are important. You know, if you didn't throng the streets of this city or any other for the actual genocide going on in Sudan, not the one that Medhi and Gideon pretend is happening, but the actual genocide going on in Sudan, if you didn't spend weekend after weekend doing that, but you did come out for the post-October the 7th protests, you're an anti-Semite. If, like Medhi once sent a tweet condemning that, it doesn't give you quite enough smoke cover. You know, if you protested not a bit, didn't set up a tent when Bashar al-Assad was killing 6 times the number of people in a decade that Israel and all of its enemies have lost in 75 years of war, you are an anti-Semite. And I would just add one other thing. I know that Medhi has tried to reframe the motion. I'm not going to allow it either. You know, maybe there is somebody in the world. Pakistan was invented, created as a state around the same time as Israel. I reckon that if this debate tonight was about Pakistan, Pakistan started a lot of wars, it suffered a lot of wars, it suffered a lot of casualties, caused a lot of casualties. But you know what? If somebody said, I think Pakistan should be abolished. They just don't have the right to a state, and although they had one set up for them many decades ago, we should abolish it. I think people would say, And then if the person said, but, oh, by the way, although I want to abolish that state, I have no problem with the Pakistani people. Please, please, of course you would.
There are 4 points he makes in this short, brief clip, which we all need to have clarity on. Number one is don't perpetrate a war and then complain about the response. This has been the historic behavior of the Arab countries. This happened in every single war. And sadly, Israel plays into this by actually then playing as if we now have to apologize for the war that they perpetrated and inflicted tremendous damage on us. No, if you start a war and you lose it, you will not only lose the war, you will lose the things that you lost through that war. That's what needs to be made very, very clear. When will this war end? Point number 2, when will this war end? Very simple. Hamas, you can end the war whenever you want. Return the hostages. It's that simple. Don't put pressure, America and the world, don't put pressure on Israel. You're speaking to the wrong party. Israel didn't start this war. Put pressure on Hamas and make it very clear that they have no support and their propaganda will not have any impact until all the hostages are returned and they restore at least whatever they could from the enormous damage that they created. And then we can sit by a table and talk. Until then, there's nothing to discuss. Point number 3, you go and protest against Israel because you're a morally righteous person who cares about the death of children? Did you attend a single protest when the true genocide in Sudan was happening? Why not? Far more people were killed then. Did you attend a single protest to protest the 6 times more in a single decade of murders perpetrated by their own leader, by Assad in Syria? Did you attend one protest because you care so much about children, where he murdered 6 times more people in one decade than all of the wars Israel had in 75 years? If you didn't, there's only one reason why you are participating in a protest against Israel: because you are an anti-Semite, not Zionist. Don't try and coat this over. You're an anti-Semite. And that's why the only time it'll show up is when it's something against the Jews. If Pakistan, point number 4 he makes, if Pakistan would be called upon to be abolished, even though it is a legal country, and someone decides suddenly they have no right to exist, and you say, no, I have no problem with Pakistanians. I only have a problem with them having a country. Really? Really? You just want to make them homeless, but you have no problem with the people. Who are we fooling? And we must be clear about these points, because then we can repeat them clearly. When you state truth, truth is like a match in the dark room. In a single moment, all of that darkness that people are spewing suddenly disappears, and they have nothing to say at all.